Tonight's Kings game, if Sean Salisbury wanted to watch it, would start at 10 p.m.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. The one, the only, Sean Salisbury. Good morning, Sean.
What's happening, guys?
Normally, we go right into football or screw around with Hallmark movies or something, but you're not in Dallas, but you're in Texas, you're in Houston, and you're acutely aware of not just football. I've often said Sean could come on every week, literally, and we could do nothing but basketball or baseball or Hallmark movies or regular movies.
Anything.
Normally, my preference over the football stuff, but that's okay. You know, we all like to do stuff that's not what everybody has you kind of pigeonholed to do. I mean, my enjoyment is baseball, basketball, PGA Tour, college hoops, maybe my most favorite of all of it. So wherever you got to go, man. I may not be able to tell you what you want to hear, but I'll tell you because I pay attention.
Well, Nico Harrison got fired from the Mavericks. I think as we speak, he's being fired, if you believe the reports. But Sean, Jason and I were just talking about it, and for me, when you talk about all these conspiracies, the triangle of Mark Cuban selling to Sheldon Adelson's widow when Mark Cuban lived and breathed the Mavericks, to the trade for Luka with no open market to the Lakers for damaged goods and Anthony Davis, to the third side of the triangle, which is they shockingly got Cooper Flagg as a play-in team. That is one of the smelliest things in the history of the NBA to me. But when you see Nico Harrison get fired, I imagine nobody in Texas is going to be feeling bad for him.
No, it's amazing. I mean, it permeates all the way. We're about 4 hours away from Dallas, but even when last year, when at the end of the season, when Luka got traded, I mean, it was banter on our show, and they can't stand the Mavericks. You're talking about the Rockets, right? Somehow the Spurs kind of just fit in, and nobody really bothered by them. But when it comes to the Mavericks and that whole thing, the Rockets fans, it's just like in any sport. But it is the Hatfields and McCoys. Yeah, man, when you're going to do that, and it was a curious trade in the first place, one of the worst we've seen. And that's a difficult job as a GM, but you know what? You get paid to make the decisions, and if they're going to empower you, you got to make them. But I'm with you. It's like, well, that worked out. And you know that there's, the talk of casinos and all that stuff coming to Texas and a bigot complex. So when Cuban, sold his off, and you keep a closer eye. I think it's a deeper dive into some of the reasons behind it. But he's had opportunities. He traded away a player that everybody loved, even if he was a little soft and out of shape. He'll still score 30 falling out of bed in Luka, and you go get him for a guy who's going to play about 40 games a year. That set him off. And then when you're not winning, and now you get the first pick. So there's a lot going on, and we're supposed to be in a performance, results-oriented pro sports business. And a lot of times we get guys on potential, and then we want the performance, but the potential may not have matched what you thought. So he got it, and he's going to be out. And the Dallas Mavericks, well, I think they're 3-7 or 3-8 to start the season. And he had to have a fast start with this. He just did. But they're going to start fresh over. And if you're going to do it, you may as well do it early in the season to get the new GM accustomed and affiliated. There's some good ones out there. But I think that after the Luka trade, guys, they had to have damn near everything perfect. He got a little love after the draft, but that was because you were in the right position. But if you don't do anything with it, you're going to have to move on, and that's exactly what they're going to do, and probably better for it. It felt like he was overwhelmed with some of his decisions.
Sean, all the years we've talked to you, I know we've talked before about whether or not you'd want to go into coaching and that. I don't think we ever asked, how about the front office? Would you ever want to do GM or anything like that?
Yeah, I would. I don't put it out there and promote it very much. I've actually put my just during this time right now, put my resume into, I got a master's degree in sport management, and that's the reason I went and got it. Aside from promising my parents at my USC graduation that I was going to get a master's degree. So I have when you say credentials, they want you to have a master's degree. I have that to at least be interviewed. I would love it. I would love to be a general manager for a college, or athletic director, general manager, or at least be a part of the personnel part of helping someone. Yeah. I know that's not easy too. A lot of people think because you played that, we automatically think you can go be a good coach. You see a lot of professional former players in sports go into management or coaching, and it's tough. Look what Dion and Warren Sapp and Marshall Faulk are struggling with. Great players, great football players. The problem sometimes is that players can't live up to those guys' expectations, so we lose patience, meaning those guys, because Yeah, man, who's going to be Marshall Faulk or Warren Sapp on the field? And so that can happen. So you got to be a patient coach. And there's a lot. I think coaching's tougher than playing. Once you get, I do, because especially in college with all the stuff. So yeah, I would love to. And the coaching thing would have to be perfect for me at this point, because the right coach, meaning it doesn't even really matter the destination, but that would matter a little bit. But it's the people you're around. But as far as being a GM or an athletic director, now we have both in college. I'd love to go learn from somebody, because for me, it wasn't about, well, I was a player, I know this. I kind of deep dive. Even when I'm watching games, I'm watching games for other reasons. Now, I'm no capologist. You have to find somebody else to do all that math. But when it comes to personnel and leadership, I think I've seen rock bottom enough, and I think I've seen the top of the mountain at times, and people who have lived at the top of the mountain, not me, but seen it. And I've read enough books and been in enough experiences that I think I could help somebody, but I don't pine for it. I don't openly go after it. But I have put my resume into a couple places that I won't mention, that, whether it's an associate athletic director, that I'd love an interview. That's all I want, is an interview. And then we'll go from there. But it's not something that I'm pursuing heavily. But I would absolutely love to do it, because I think that's the next step in my career to development, whether it's young people or, well, they're all young people compared to me now. So, yeah, that would be great.
This is one of those questions where I'm going to rely on yours and my long, long history, because I think you'll know where I'm coming from and the respect I have, not just for you and your playing career, but what some don't realize, especially in this generation, the multi-sport national recruit you were. But I often think, Sean, about you in coaching, and we've talked about it before, but also how you would be really the perfect type of coach and the type that would have success. Because when you look at, and again, I say this with love and respect, when you look at the history of great coaches and managers, more often than not, it's not Michael Jordan. It's not Tom Brady. It's not the guy that is the greatest of all time. It's the guy that did it as much with his IQ and his work ethic as his God-given physical abilities, whether it's a catcher, whether it's the point guard, the person that had to bust his ass to get through, mainly because the psychology is, well, Michael Jordan just does it, and Tom Brady just does it, and they work hard, but Sean Salisbury or Bruce Bochy or Eric Spoelstra, who used to play at Portland State, they had to do it as much with their mind as their bodies, which is how they're able to teach. Does that make sense, and do you agree with that?
100%. I don't take it as offense to it. I take it as a compliment. And the ironic thing is I was that guy coming out of high school division, and I don't mean this arrogant at all, but just to set up what you, to validate what you're saying, as a guy who was recruited first by Michigan State and UCLA and USC in basketball and Division I baseball schools. Football was the last one, and because I didn't play till I got to high school. And so I was that guy that was a 5-star recruit and everybody wanted you. And then I hit adversity, shredded my knee twice. So I've seen both ends. I know what it's like to sit up there and everybody wants to talk to you after a game as a freshman, and you're like the number one recruit in the country. And I also know that, well, after you get hurt a couple times and don't get drafted, nobody wants to talk to you.
Right.
And you're not going into the restaurant getting the free drink like you did when you were a Heisman Trophy candidate before you got hurt. Now you're going in and you got to raise your hand and say, I did play, what I'm saying. But the patience part of going through it, I think it's important. I can't tell you what the first pick of the draft's like, because I was never the first pick of the draft. I know guys who have been. Right. I can tell you what the guy who wasn't drafted had to go make a team. So I get both ends of the spectrum. I know what it was like to have people fawn over you and then to turn you, and in business as well. So I've seen the business, not just sports, because leadership comes in different forms, and it's not how good you were on the field. So I have learned valuable lessons along the way of getting kicked in the teeth and got to fight back. But that's life for most people. And I think that is so important. And you're right about the Bochis, the catchers, the backup quarterback. Because remember, when you're a backup, you have very minimal opportunity to make mistakes. Mm-hmm. The window is not that big. If you're the first pick of the draft or a first-round pick where they've invested in you, you get 3 years of mistakes, and sometimes longer. And then there's somebody else to think they can fix you. When you're a guy who wasn't drafted, you went through injuries, you are a GM. You think about a coach. Most of them go to 15 different jobs in 10 years before they get the gig they want. So you got to go or a radio guy. Fortunately, I didn't have to because I played, but think about the grind that everybody goes on to have to go through small radio situations to get that one. Same thing with GMs. You were working as an assistant. You were driving the guy to the airport and getting his coffee, and then all of a sudden you're a graduate assistant, and then you're an assistant defensive backfield coach or assistant GM to the whatever, and you have to work your way up. That's been my career. And it's 180 degrees different than I had planned when I was in high school. Everything was easy. You were the best player in basketball and baseball and football. And then it switched 180 degrees where you got to fight every single day for survival. And it's been in my post career. I wasn't the first pick of the draft who's in the Hall of Fame. You're going to get Monday Night Football. I had to grind. I had to do ESPN News. I had to be a college sideline reporter. I've seen every facet of it. So, and I don't mean it arrogant. I know damn well if I was coaching that I can make a difference because I've seen it from all ends. And I teach. I don't coach. I'm not a yeller and screamer. I'm a passionate one, but I know how to teach. And if you can't teach and bring everybody along, you're not doing your job. You can't bring just 85% of the guys along. And also when you get buy-in in the building, I know the difference between having players have to kiss your ass because they like you, but want to be around you yet respect you because they know the work you've put in. And it's a hard gig, and all of them are, and I have a lot of respect. But I do think we're at a time when buddies get jobs and guys realize that, like, man, you can't hire your friends unless they're worthy of the position. And so I would love the opportunity, if nothing else, to just get interviewed in some of these in front offices or GMs, because I think the whole goal is to win, to make people around you better, like you're supposed to do as a quarterback. And when you've seen all of them, getting knocked in the mouth doesn't bother me anymore. There's nothing you can say about me negatively or do to me or take a job that will affect me or get into my self-worth or do it. I've been there, done that. And it's happened, and it's beat me down, but never again. You can't do it. So if they talk about the guy who can take a punch, I can take one, but I sure as hell can deliver one too, not literally, but in the figurative mode. So, yeah, if somebody ever calls up from Sacramento State to USC to the Denver Broncos to the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm listening, but I'm not pining for it. But the right people, and I know I can elevate somebody around me, and I think that's the job. And I do it without ego, because when you've been kicked in the teeth, you're bringing ego to it. I bring pride to it and preparation, but I don't bring a lot of ego to it because, listen, you can be the best player in the world, the best coach in the world, and 2 years later, if you don't have – ask Brian Daboll. Mm-hmm. He had him in the playoffs and got a new contract and everything was rolling in New York. 2 years later, guy's out of a job during the season. So you can shift on a dime, so you better be prepared for it, and some can't handle it. I'd like to say that I had more successes than failures, but sometimes you're thinking, I don't know, maybe – and I've never learned much from succeeding, honest to God, other than how to be humble. But I've learned a lot from getting knocked around a little bit. And so if they want that kind of fighter, then I'm him. But I also know the profession, and I've worked hard at studying the intricacies of whether it's front office or coaching. Yet here I am broadcasted, and I love that too. So, they always told me the more you could do. And my dad said the same thing, be prepared for anything. And without my dad and mom's advice and that push, I would have never, ever been able to handle failure. We can all handle success. Can you handle failure at the worst of times? And I can tell you the one thing I'm proudest of, I can. And that's the one thing I'm most proud of in my career.
Sean, you mentioned Brian Daboll. Beside it being one of 32 jobs in the NFL, is the Giants job, is that a good one?
The Giants job, I think, is, listen, anytime it's a New York job, it's always a good one, right? I mean, and when I say that, I'm talking about media, all the stuff you want. Now, from the standpoint of you better be thick-skinned, you better have a sense of humor, and you better win. There's no pay. And you better do that all over sports, but you're going to have to win quickly there because it'll shift on a dime. And both New York teams, they're not good. Aaron Glenn's learning how quickly it changed. Aaron Rodgers, players as well. And some don't want any part of it because it's too much pressure. The job, it'd have been better if Saquon Barkley was still a Giant. You didn't trade away and had Malik Neighbors playing. But you start to look at their defensive front. You start to look at the talent on the edge, the young quarterback. See, I always start there because you come in, you're like, man, I got a guy who's a decade starter with all this energy. Jackson Dart's a good place to start. Hell, Lane Kiffin would be perfect for the job because he's a smart ass, because he's matured. He's been through the Saban stuff. He's had some great jobs. I don't know if he's going to take it, but Jackson Dart, it may tempt him a little bit, but he may still want to do the college thing. But if you go in there, you better have a suit of armor on, because you can win 9 in a row. You get beaten on an embarrassing game in front of a national televised audience, they will torch you, and that's okay. Philly, Boston, you learn to be thick-skinned there. Those fans are passionate, and so is the media. So I think, listen, any NFL job's a good job, but you better be in position. You better have a quarterback. You better get buy-in immediately, and you better hire. We always give the head coach the credit.
Mm-hmm.
Look around you. The coaches that hire great assistants, those are the guys that spend most of the time with the players. So look at the head coach. It's one thing, but you better have assistants that buy in, not just players, assistants that buy into you and put that time in. Because if you don't, I'm telling you what, every head coach I've ever been around, he's just about as good as the guys he hired and the players. The Jimmies and the Joes are so important, and that includes the coaches. I can get anybody to draw up an X and O. It doesn't take a brain surgeon to do that, how to attack something. But in game time, real time, and doing it and having that moxie to do that, you better hire good ones. You better take your ego out of hiring. You better hire coaches and people around you you expect to be in position to take that job, not from you, but another head coach. And if you get those kind of guys and loyal guys, you'll always have a chance. Yeah, New York's a good job because, well, it's New York. And if you win, you'll never, ever have to pay for anything again in your life. If you lose, you'll be out of a job in about 2 years. So you know what you get when you cross those lines in New York.
Sean Salisbury with us as we look at this season so far. I want to get into a micro question, then a macro later on from the day-to-day. Can you help me with the Buffalo Bills, dude? Not only do they lose to the Dolphins, who probably should have fired Mike about 6 weeks ago, but they're not gonna, fine. Not only do they get blown out by the Dolphins, but they get shut out for the first 3 quarters by the Dolphins. I thought these Bills were, along with the Chiefs, the AFC favorites, and they still may be, but what the hell is going on with them?
Yeah, and at the beginning of the year, I picked them to go and win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I felt like Josh Allen. I did, and I'm with you. But think about the league. New Orleans goes in and plays well against Carolina. New Orleans couldn't beat us 3.
Right.
Okay. Atlanta beat Buffalo early in the season. I mean, and then Buffalo goes. But you look at Buffalo's wins, aside from what the Chiefs win in Buffalo.
Yeah.
They've got no quality wins.
That's right.
So I hate to say this, they're overrated. Now Cook's a really good player. If Josh Allen does not play really good football, they can't win. I'm talking about big consistently. Now look around the league. There's times when Kansas City's offense, the last 2 years has struggled. They're back at getting after it some now. I mean, they're better. But think about defense carried them. Even if Mahomes was 16 of 24 for 179 yards, they just found ways. I'm not sure Buffalo can do that, even with Cook and Allen. They have got to play great. Their defense has not been the same. I mean, they're good, but you can score on them, as we saw. Miami's got no ounce of physicality, and they actually whooped them physically in that game. Another team you look at and say, that coach survived that, but they're not any good. And watch, they'll go get beat by 20 this week, and I don't even know who they play, meaning Miami. So, and look around. Baltimore, they're a game out now.
Yeah.
That they're turning into, look out for them. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, now we look at them and say that they have 0 weapons. I mean, where's their weapons? They can't get anything done, and Rodgers is playing blah. So it's a crazy league. If I was a futures guy, which I am on betting, I would not. I would change my bet on the Buffalo Bills because that's such an onus and pressure to put on one cat to carry him. But you tell me, without him, no disrespect to Mitch Trubisky, where that team's going. So that's a lot. And you say, well, Sean, isn't that the case with the Rams? Maybe. But that team seems to sort of look at the 49ers, even though they got beat by the Rams pretty handily. Look what they've done with all the injuries. They've survived it, and they can hang around. I'm not sure Buffalo can. So, yeah, I can't, Dave. I'd love to.
Mm-hmm.
I take a step back and say why, but sometimes the why is just simply an execution, and maybe it's got to the point where they say, well, we're just going to put it in that big fella's hands, and he'll go win us games. But if he's not playing great, Buffalo becomes pretty average. The New England Patriots are playing more consistent and better than anybody in the AFC. Right now, if you said, who's the two best, that's the Colts included, the way that the New England's playing, they're not as explosive as the Colts. You give me New England and you give me the Rams, you'd be hard-pressed to find two teams playing consistently better. And both quarterbacks should be 1 and 2, sans Jonathan Taylor for the MVP. And I'm speaking of Drake, obviously Matt Stafford and Drake May. And they both spin it about as well as anybody in the league.
Now, Sean, I'm guilty of this probably when I'm thinking about teams and projections, and as the year goes on, I go, at the end, I've seen Kansas City do it to some extent, certainly Buffalo and Baltimore, but the teams you just mentioned, whether it's the Colts, New England, or let's throw in Denver, have they surpassed those other teams, or do we need to see it a little bit more of them?
Now, who'd you say passed those teams? Who was it?
Was it Denver, Indianapolis, and New England? Did they pass kind of the traditional AFC teams of the Chiefs, Baltimore, and Buffalo?
I'm not saying I don't put them past them. When we say what 8-2 teams are 10 games in now, so we've seen we kind of know who teams are. Yet then the January hits. And that team in Kansas City, we always say, well, they just differently when January hits. That's the unique thing about football. Like in basketball, if they're going, like last year, Oklahoma City was the best team all year long. And in the right, they just were. And you can kind of see that in baseball. We know who they are, but damn, 4 weeks ago, Baltimore was left for dead. Now they've got a legitimate chance. I mean, when the season started, Joe Burrow, Cincinnati Bengals, they're going to set records offensively. He's now practicing again. They can't play. So you look around. Do I think they've caught them and passed them? No. Because if I ask you right now, New England against Kansas City, even if they're playing New England and it's January 20th, who are you picking?
Chiefs.
Yeah. So am I. So until we see difference. So we're going to say this, but when those teams like Baltimore, even though Baltimore and Buffalo haven't closed it out, right now if I said it's Lamar versus Drake May, and this is not to be disrespectful, but I think it's almost like we do need to see more, even though we've seen 10, 11 weeks of it. And Mike Vrabel's history as head coach pretty damn good. Big mistake by Tennessee, even when they were struggling. They just didn't have any players. If I said it's Lamar Jackson versus Drake May's team and it's January, even though Baltimore has not closed the door, you're probably picking Baltimore until New England proves with the young that they can do it. And they don't have a lot of weapons, but they're utilizing them efficiently offensively. So, yeah, while our perception is, man, these teams are upstart, but right now you're still taking Kansas City over the Colts in the playoffs.
Yep.
You just are. Today, even if, whether the record says they'd be in or not, but if you're asking if the gap's closed on just pure consistency, and if you were Kansas City and Buffalo and Baltimore, are you taking major notice to a team like the Colts or a team like the New England Patriots? You're damn right you are, because they're doing everything right, and consistency and believability does matter in this league. So the gap's closed. It's no longer, hey, the Chiefs are dominant, everybody else stand in line. You're going to have to go through them and their building to go beat them. Yet, even if Kansas City just barely gets in, we still trust them to go on the road and win, probably more than the others, even though the others' consistency this year has earned it. I'm trying to just judge these teams based on this year, because last year doesn't mean a hill of beans. But I do know that teams like Kansas City, when they get in, are just a little bit different than the rest of the team. You're hoping that somehow they stub their toe for 3 more weeks, and you can keep them out, because if they get in, they're as dangerous as anybody, as we well know.
As always, when we wrap up with Sean Salisbury during the holidays, we like to finish with the award-winning game show. Is this a real or fake Hallmark holiday movie? Sean, last week I believe you went 3-1. Are you ready for another quick round?
I am.
Okay. These are the plot lines. You just tell me whether or not it's real or fake. Last week we did titles. A girl asks for a boyfriend for Christmas when she's 13. 20 years later, a mysterious man appears claiming to be her Christmas gift.
Yes.
He's seen it.
That is correct.
Yes.
He didn't even need to fill in them anymore.
You can't. Not even if I didn't know, because they come out of nowhere. All of a sudden, this guy comes down. It's like 20 years ago. I've seen it. I've seen the movie. Not only that, you can't make up a story like that without it being real. So yes.
All right, want to know? Question 2. A grumpy college student's flight home for Christmas break is canceled. She ends up staying with her professor and falls in love with his son. Through him, she learns the true meaning of Christmas.
Fact.
That is fake. That is a fake Christmas.
You know why? The only reason I said it was off, but I should have caught on to it's Hallmark. They like to do, it's nothing. They don't do a lot of shady stuff. When you said she stays with the professor, falls in love with the kid, I should have known then. Yeah, that's a little too immoral to start. Right. I should have known then. I was going to say, I haven't need it, but I've sure thought about it a few times. I'm sure.
All right, 1-1 for the day. 2 more. 2 police detectives pose as a married couple to investigate a series of robberies, only for them to be swept up in the Christmas spirit and also fall in love with each other.
Amen. Yes.
That is correct. That is a real Hallmark movie. He is 2-1. And finally, for the second straight week to go 3-1. After rescuing a stranded reindeer, 2 animal rehabilitators learn that it's one of Santa's flying reindeer and must deliver it to the North Pole bbefore Christmas. Along the way, they fall in love, naturally.
No, that's false.
That is also correct. Sean Salisbury, 6-2, 2 consecutive 3-1s. Congratulations.
I'm not so sure that I'm supposed to say thank you for congratulations that I'm dominating Hallmark movie channel. Okay.
Hey, there's always
I haven't been 6-2 in a long time.
Hidden talent.
I'll take it though. I'll take it. Can I get a futures bet on my ability to crush? I know Kalshi's got to have that in there. Hey, Hallmark movies. Is this an inning? If that's the case, I am the king. That's for sure.
Put this on your coaching and or general manager resume as well. You mean professional Hallmark movie expert.
While I just walked into my office, here's a readjustment to the resume. So if you want that, I'm in, brother. I'm going to add it to the lower part, miscellaneous resume crap, right? There you go.
See you next week, brother.
All right, guys. Have a good one. Thank you.
Sean Salisbury. And another edition of Is This a Real or Fake?